Good evening. My name is Akisa Ondera. Sign language interpreter is Meresha Obiti. Thank you for joining us tonight. President Uhuru Kenyatta and opposition leader Raila Odinga have finally received the Building Bridges Initiative report from the BBI task force. Deputy President William Ruto also attended the ceremony that was held at State House here in Nairobi. Our senior political affairs reporter Chris Tairu opens up our bulletin tonight with some of the far-reaching proposals aimed at uniting the country even after an acrimonious general election.
These images from State House late Tuesday evening may have ended the close to 2 years' wait for the now famous Building Bridges Initiative report. But this document, to be officially unveiled on Wednesday, could as well have just set stage for a major shake-up of the country's political landscape heading to the 2022 polls. First is the recommended return of the post of Prime Minister. The PM is to be appointed by the President on the first summoning of Parliament, this being a person serving as an elected member of the National Assembly from the political party with majority members in the National Assembly, or the person who appears to have the support of a majority of the MPs, if no political party has a majority. The PM has to be confirmed by a resolution of the National Assembly, supported by an absolute majority of MPs. The PM shall chair the cabinet, wield the supervision and execution mandate of the day-to-day affairs of government, and shall also be the official leader of government business in Parliament. The PM may, however, be dismissed by the President or through a vote of no confidence in the National Assembly. But the watchdog mandate of Parliament on the executive could have also gotten a major boost, following a recommendation from the report for return of the post of leader of official opposition. According to the BBI team, this person should be a candidate who emerges second in the presidential race and shall also sit in Parliament as an ex-official member. His or her party, however, must not be a member of the coalition forming government and will be allowed to form a shadow cabinet, which will take a key role in question time when the PM appears in Parliament. A suggestion replicated in county leadership, where the runners-up in the governorship contest also becomes an ex-official member of the county assembly and the leader of the official opposition in the House. Under the current dispensation, National Assembly Majority Leader Aden Duale would be the ideal Prime Minister, with ODM leader Raila Odinga as the official leader of opposition. These suggestions now giving closure to the prolonged political debate leading to release of the report, which now heads to intense public debate with the likelihood of being converted into a bill to be introduced in Parliament for debate. As framed by the task force, the recommended leadership changes, analysts argue,
fanfare is being played,
do not need a referendum to pass, as they do not touch on any of the issues listed on Article 255, subsection 1 of the 2010 Constitution, under which constitutional changes would have to be subjected to a popular vote. For instance, the presidential tenure remains a maximum of 2 5-year terms, retaining the constitutional powers of office as the head of state and government. The recommendations also do not touch on the supremacy of the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, independence of the judiciary, and powers of Parliament. A parliamentary amendment, should the report be redrafted into a bill, might thus be enough to pass the recommendations after robust public participation expected after the Wednesday launch. There certainly has never been scarcity of curative reports to Kenya's toxic power struggles. But with the Kenyatta succession politics already at a fever pitch, yet another round of uncertainty dogs the nation as release of the BBI report beckons. Murimi Mwangi, KTN News in Nairobi.
Well, just a quick correction. That's Murimi Mwangi looking at the implications of the report to the succession politics and, of course, explaining why a referendum may not be necessary as we head to the 2022 polls. At this point, I'd like to quickly get a reaction from a member of Parliament. Then later on, we'll look at the specific recommendations of this particular report. The BBI task force that presented it today before President Uhuru Kenyatta and opposition leader Raila Odinga. Kimani Kimani Chungwa, Member of Parliament Kikuyu, speaking to us live from here in Nairobi. Thank you, sir, for joining us tonight here on KTN Prime. Let's quickly first get your initial reactions on what I believe you've been able to peruse through this report even ahead of its release in Bomas. Your initial reactions on what you've heard or read. What do you think?
Let me say, from what I have read from the media and heard from the media, I think overall is a good report, and is a report that captures some of the issues that we have been speaking about. To a great extent, I did say on Sunday that I was hoping and praying that we would not be looking at a referendum at this time between now and the next elections. And I think I want to agree with your reporter, Mremi, that indeed, as it looks from what has been reported so far, is that we are not looking at a referendum. It's something that can be done within Parliament through our constitution changes in Parliament. To the concerns that we have had on the threats that have been given before of a tsunami, I do not see any tsunami with this kind of report. I see what the president has been telling us as something that is coming to unify Kenyans. We had concerns on what Kenyans have called kuongeza mzigo, or increasing the burden of taxpayers. I think from what I have seen and heard is that the new position of a prime minister that is being introduced comes from a member of parliament who will continue to earn his salary as a member of parliament with no extra income or allowances as a prime minister. And therefore, in terms of the ongeza and punguza mzigo debate, I think it falls within the place of that. To a large extent, the question of providing oversight of a government in terms of what the leader of official position will be able to do from the floor of parliament, I think the introduction of such a position as leader of official position is a good and welcome idea at this particular point in time. One of the things that probably I am ready to go through the entire report, and I do hope we may not be able to pass quick judgments on the report without reading it in its entirety. But one of the questions I would beg to ask today, if the report does not address what happens to people who do not concede defeat in elections, I think that's a question and a topic that, as the debate continues, we must be able to address. What happens in an election where even that probably that first runners-up does not concede to defeat in an election? Because the genesis of post-election violence in this country has been the refusal by people to accept election results. Remember, President Uhuru Kenyatta lost an election in 2002, and by conceding defeat, we never saw the kind of things that we have seen with the refusal to concede defeat in 2007, 2013, and even 2017. Therefore, we must also, as the debate continues, be able to come up with issues or, penalties or whatever we would do to people who will cause violence by not conceding to electoral defeat.
This is largely seen from some quarters as a report for the political class. I say this because we have seen previous reports talk about the TJRC and NCIC reports that could actually address some of the specific issues in the 9-point agenda of this BBI task force. So then, what different thing do we expect this time around? What are your thoughts with the feelings of some Kenyans that this is just a report for the political class?
I think for us, and I have expressed that concern before, that we must have a report that does not seem to look at just issues to do with the leadership in this country, but also address the issues that we have raised, the issues to do with our farmers, the issues to do with youth unemployment in this country. Those are issues that I do hope, and I said I will not be quick to pass judgment on the report, because we are here to read the report, we are here to get the entire report and be able to pass judgment on the report in its entirety. Therefore, let us not be quick at this particular point to pass judgment whether it's only addressing issues to do with leadership in this country. But I do hope, and my prayer is that in the entire report will address even issues to do with youth unemployment, issues to deal with how we deal with poverty eradication in this country, the question of our farmers and their agricultural produce and pricing. All those issues I do hope the report will be able to address. And if it does not address, it is my hope and desire, in line with what our leaders have told us today in Jubilee, both the president and the deputy president, that we will have a democratic and inclusive process that will be consultative, a process where we can be able to put in all the issues that are of concern to our people, because it will again be very unfair to this country and to the people of this country to only address to issues that concern leaders in this country. We must come to that point where we also address issues that concern Kenyans.
So then going forward, with just 3 years to 2022, this seems to have set the stage for heightened discourse around this particular report. We know yourself and other leaders have been vehemently against the referendum. From that report we've seen from Murimi Mwangi, it is highly unlikely that the country would go for a referendum. So talk to us about what you think about, of course, the creation of positions of Prime Minister and the deputies that come with. You've talked about the creation of the position of opposition chief in Parliament. Let's just look at that structure from where you sit. What are your thoughts?
I think one of the reasons that I did say it on Sunday in a public forum somewhere in Thika, that a referendum between now and 2022 would not be an ideal thing to do for this country. Remember what happened to this country with the 2005 referendum just before the 2007 elections. And therefore, there are those who are looking at this as an opportunity to have a referendum that probably would be more divisive among us Kenyans. Two, they wanted a referendum that would be the basis or their basis for preparing ground for a situation where it would be us versus them. And I think the good thing about this report is that it doesn't grant them that opportunity to create a situation of us versus them. And therefore, moving forward, I think is something that I would want to encourage Kenyans to take our time, read the report in its entirety. On the question of the positions being created, that of a prime minister, if you look at the current constitution, the way it is, and the structure of the executive and the legislature, I think is just the position of Aden Duale as leader of majority that probably is also borrowing a bit from the executive in terms of coordination of national government, what CS Matiang'i does. And putting it in one position as prime minister. And it's a good thing on the floor of the House to have some sort of liaison between the executive and the legislature. The question of having an effective opposition in the House, I think the last 2 years since the March 9th handshake and what seems to be a very dilapidated, if for lack of a better word, opposition in the House, has created a situation in this country that Kenyans are not happy about. And I think having a leader of opposition who is a credible person in the country as a first runners-up in a presidential election in the House, leading the opposition troops in the House to provide oversight on government is a good thing for this country, is a good thing for democracy.
Finally, asking on behalf of Kenyans as we wind up, what will be different this time round with this report? What do you expect to be different?
Different in terms of what? The discourse in the country?
Especially discourse and implementation.
Well, in terms of implementation, of course, as has been said, this is just a report. It would have to be subjected to a very inclusive process where all Kenyans get to engage on the proposals in the report. What needs legislative changes to be changed through legislation? What needs constitution changes? Hopefully, through Parliament, we should be able to do that through Parliament. But I think I want to encourage Kenyans to just first read the report in its entirety. From a glimpse of what has been reported in the media doesn't look too bad, doesn't look very harmful to anybody. And I think for me, what makes me happy is that the tsunamis we were threatened about, that we were very opposed to, I do not see those tsunamis.
Thank you very much for speaking to us tonight, Honorable Kimani Chungwa, Member of Parliament, Kikuyu. Very optimistic with that particular report. Remember, it's expected to be officially released tomorrow at the Bomas of Kenya. But we will be telling you shortly on what some of the recommendations this particular task force has made on the 9-point agenda that they worked on for an expansive 8 months after the handshake between President Uhuru Kenyatta and opposition chief Raila Odinga. But I would also like to hear what you have to say about this report. It's big, it's going to affect all our lives, it's going to affect our political discourse in this country. We'd love to hear from you, we ask tonight. So after those comprehensive reports on the just released BBI reports, why your expectations met in the BBI report, why your expectations met within the BBI report. We'd love to hear what you have to say as a Kenyan voter. At Akisawandera, at KTN News KE, at KTN Kenya. The hashtag to use is KTN Prime. I'd love to sample some of your views. If you're texting at 22155, we'll be looking at some of your responses shortly here on KTN Prime. Stick with us.